Sabaha everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to do an unboxing and initial impressions of not one, not two, but three different devices from the G4 family by Motorola/Lenovo. We're looking at the G4, the G4 Play, the G4 Plus. This is TK. Let's check them out. Motorola was nice enough to send me three different devices. We have the G4 Plus, the G4, this is the standard upgrade from last year's model, and the G4 Play. All three are intended to be budget to mid-range devices, and more so the G4 Plus, mostly because of the specs and the resolution, and we'll get into that. The G4 Plus is the biggest of all devices. It's an octa-core processor running a 5.5-inch 1080p display. We have a 16 megapixel camera in the back, a 5 megapixel camera in the front. We have 4G LTE compatibility with any unlocked GSM operator in the US. We do have up to 6 hours within 15 minutes charge. We have a 3000 milliamp battery built in here with turbocharging, so you're getting the full benefits of quick charging on these devices. Very, very nice. We go in down to the Moto G. The Moto G goes down a little bit as far as the spec we're going to look at here. We're still looking at the 5.5-inch Full HD display, so we're looking to both are 1080p. They're exactly the same form factor, except you get more functionality here. With the G4 Plus, you get a fingerprint sensor, laser autofocus. Here we have a 13 megapixel back-facing camera with a 5 megapixel front-facing camera. We do have 4G LTE, of course, same 3000 milliamp battery that we have built in on the other one. We don't have laser autofocus or the fingerprint sensor, but they both have expandable storage using micro SD card. Bringing in the G4 Play. The G4 Play really by far is considered to be the budget of all three devices. We're looking at the pricing here. We're looking at $250 on the G4 Plus, $179 recently dropped price on this one, which is $180 directly for the G4, and then we're looking at $150 for the G4 Play. It's really kind of rounding the spectrum of low part of this. It's a quad-core processor over the other two that are running octa-cores. It is running a 720p display, 5-inch, so it's a little bit smaller as far as the configuration. An 8 megapixel camera with a 5 megapixel front-facing camera. We also have 16 gigabytes of internal storage with 2 gigs of RAM, same way we have it on the G4, although the G4 Plus does go up to 64 gigs with 4 gigs of RAM. So again, you can see here kind of like the spectrum where things are going. We are looking at a slightly smaller battery, 2800. Again, it's a smaller, physically smaller device. And of course, we have the ability of adding micro SD card and then boosting the performance with an almost stock experience of Android. Here's the G4 Plus. I did turn on the device, and like I said, there's a fingerprint sensor, a microphone in the front. We do have front-facing speaker, one speaker that's front-facing. We have the front-facing 5 megapixel camera, a power button, a volume rocker on the right. They're somewhat centered as far as the power button, but as far as the volume rocker, I feel like it's a little bit low as you have to actually kind of go down to get it. But I would have preferred it to be slightly higher. It is a 5.5-inch display, 1080p resolution. On the left side, we have nothing. On the top, we do have a single headphone jack. Thank God we still have those. On the bottom, we have a micro USB connector. We do not have USB Type-C. So the connector on this point is compatible with almost every cable that we have. I would have liked to see more USB Type-C functionality. The back is removable, which is something that's unique, although the battery is not. We do have a 3000 milliamp battery that's built into this device. It is non-removable. We do have a SIM card as well as a micro SD card slot right there. And the SIM card is a micro SIM, not a nano. So if you have a nano, they do provide the adapter built in directly. If you have a micro, you're pretty much set. Closing it up. It feels pretty good in the hand. It is plastic and it's kind of textured in the back. You just have to snap it in. We do have a microphone in the back, the 60 megapixel laser autofocus, and then we also have a dual tone flash. Lastly, in the box, we do have the turbocharger and a micro USB Type A to micro USB cable, and then some instruction manuals, things that we're going to be able to check out. This is going to be compatible with Motorola's quick charge technology, so turbocharging is definitely present here. Here is the Moto G4. They sent me the white one. Now this one I haven't turned on, but the main benefits again, we have an octa-core processor, Snapdragon processor, 4G LTE, 3000 milliamp battery, expandable SD storage, 5.5-inch 1080p, similar to the Plus. Again, here we drop a little bit on the megapixels, 13 megapixels and 5 megapixels in the front. And we still have the ability here to have the microphone. There is no fingerprint sensor at this point. Nothing on the left. On the right, same configuration with the buttons. As I mentioned to you guys, the word Plus and the G4, for all intents and purposes, they are the exact same size. There's no differences as far as aesthetics, other than, of course, the optics here are different. So switching over to the back, where we're looking here is we still have the Motorola dimple as the other one, the microphone, 13 megapixel back-facing camera with dual-tone LED flash, no laser autofocus assistance, nothing on this side again, micro USB connector on the bottom for charging, as well as a single headphone jack in the top. And if we open up, Yep, pretty much the same experience, micro SIM with an SD card expansion. The smallest of all three, the G4 Play. We'll go ahead and get into the box. Again, we got the white color on this one. As far as specs, this is by far the lightest of all three. It literally feels like nothing. It's so light. I'm used to heavier devices. We do have a 5-inch display, 720p, 2800 milliamp battery, 5 megapixels in the front, 8 megapixels in the back, 16 gigs of ROM, 2 gigs of RAM. On the G4, we had 16 and 2 as well. On the G4 Plus, we had 64 and 4 gigs of RAM. Octa-core here, we have as far as the quad-core, as far as the processor, SD card support, nothing on the left. Again, same aesthetic design, although at this point now my hand rests a little higher and the power button is a little lower than what I'd like it. But again, doesn't hold back any issues. On the back, we have just again the 8 megapixel with the LED flash microphone. The front is where we have the 5 megapixel front-facing camera and another microphone. As far as just, yep, the headphone jack does move slightly to the right as opposed to the center. And then we have a tab here. I'm assuming this is to tell us that you can remove it. Yeah. Oh, this one, look, that explains why it's so light. This one did not have the battery installed. It does have a removable battery. SD card and SIM card are both on top of each other next to the camera. Overall, now, weight-wise, this one feels very, very nice. So comparing it to the G4, you can see real quick, the size difference is slightly smaller, 5.5 here on the left to 5 inches. Now that I have all three devices next to each other, you can see that they are pretty much identical in the sense of design. The only difference, obviously, here we have the two white front-facing plates here, which makes it a little bit harder to see, but the same sensors are present on all three. So you have the big grill, the proximity sensors with the camera, proximity sensors in the camera right there on all three units. We have the fingerprint sensor and the microphone on the left here. We only have a microphone and a microphone moved to the right. Again, it goes from small to big, quad core, octa core, and then as far as the design, you can see pretty much here, the power, the button here, and they're slightly raised up here. This will be the first one. Power on. Power on, and this one I already have turned on and I already logged into it. So looking at the actual unit and from the sense of aesthetics as far as boot up time here, we'll let these two guys boot up. You'll notice the screen on here is a little bit warmer than this one. We'll get a chance to check that out. Again, we're looking at a 1080p over a 720p Lenovo branding. The setup here is a little bit downplayed from what you see on the Moto Z and the Moto Z Force. And the reason I say this here, the clock widget is not the same one that opens up, but where it's all inclusive in one. The app drawer is very simple. The same thing, vertical one, pressing and holding, I'm assuming takes us to the search option. We don't have Google Now on this end or this one. And then let's just go see real quick here under setting. Go all the way to the bottom and go about phone. We are running Android 6.0.1. These are all the three displays on at full brightness. You can see basically that they're pretty much about the same, really, respectively. The fact that it is smaller. We have the same clock screen. The app drawer is pretty much loaded with the same application. It's clean. It's pure, almost stock experience of Android. And as far as going into the notification shade, we'll bring that down. Fills up the screen again. Same pretty much setup all across. You're getting a really good solid experience on these devices. And let's go to About Phone here, About Phone, and yeah, we're pretty much all running, oh, except for the G4 Play has a July 1st, 2016 update, which is very nice. I went ahead and loaded the NCS home screen on YouTube for their channel, and it seems like for some reason on the G4 Play, it loads with a different color, but overall, pretty good. We're going to play the last video that they played, and I just want to show you guys the sound difference between the three. We're going to start off with the G4, well, let's start with G4 Play. So, we still have the front-facing speaker on this one. I just wanted to check that out. And the volume is at the maximum. Thank you. Overall, sounds okay. Not the best sound quality. Again, we're looking at mono speaker facing us. Both the G4 and the G4 Plus do play the music really nice. They seem to be a little bit richer than the G4 Play. But again, for around $150, you really can't go wrong here. Overall, the experience on all three, having a front-facing speaker at this price point is very nice, because even some of the new flagships don't have front-facing speakers. Overall, as far as the setup, what we get here, again, dialer experience stock or pure stock experience on Android. I do want to show you guys real quick some of the customizations that you're able to do within the Motorola systems, as it is slightly skinned. So real quick, memory here. We're looking at 4 gigs of RAM. This has the 64 gig model, about 0.91. So you notice almost not even a gig of it is used. This is how stock the experience is here. As far as storage, right out of the box, we have 64 gigs of total storage, 10.0, well, 10.7 of that is used. So we have total available space to us is 54.1. Not that bad, very, very nice. Let's go ahead and bring down here on the G4. G4 is slightly lower spec than what we have on this one. As far as memory, we only have 2 gigs of RAM, 840 of that is used. And then when I go to storage, we have the 16 gig model, and we have about 10.82 gigs available right out of the box. And then I'm assuming it would be the exact same thing here, as this is also the 2 gig, 16 gig model. So let's go to storage. We have about 10.96, slightly less, but again, almost the same. Now battery, let's go directly into memory. And here we have the 2 gigs, again, using about 6.73 megabytes of that. Camera experience, let's go ahead and open it up. We have, this is the one with the higher end spec. So we're looking here exactly at a 16 megapixel back facing shooter and as far as the back facing shooter on the camera, and a 5 megapixel front facing wider angle lens. Let's see here how this one works. Not bad. Let's see here. Do we have the setting here? So we want to turn off the shutter, quick capture, yes. By definition on the front, the highest resolution is 5 megapixel at 4:3. If I want to go 16:9, it's 3:8. And video front, 1080p, 30 frames per second. Slow motion is at 540p at 120 frames per second on the front-facing camera. So let's go ahead and switch over to the back one and see how the specs change here. Again, I turned off the shutter sound. Here we have, by default, the 16:9 is turned on. If I want to go to 16 megapixels, again, 4:3. Shutter sound, video size is 1080p at 30 frames per second, and that is the highest I can go. And again, slow-mo is 540 at 120 frames per second. So the quality on the slow motion videos is going to drop quite dramatically down to sub HD. So it's not even 720p, but again, not the big problem here. And then of course we have HDR automatic, HDR and off. We have auto flash, we have our timer, and then of course we're able to go back into our gallery by swiping. All three devices will give you a great experience as far as what you're looking for from the sense of Android. It's running almost pure experience with Motorola's minor touches, the ability to do these little gestures to turn on the camera, and then doing the chop to turn on the flashlight. Those are very nice, but they're again more specific to Motorola. And of course you have the ability of bringing up the device to your face to be able to get peeking, and all three devices have that. And again, all three have front-facing speakers. Again, even at the $150 with the G4 Play, you have front-facing speaker. It's mono, but it's still a front-facing speaker, which is way better at experiencing music or watching videos on your device than it is as a bottom-firing speaker. Most of the time, that's facing the wrong way anyways. Overall, just keep in mind, the G4 Play is more on the lower end. It's a quad core for 150 bucks, 2 gigs of RAM, 16 gigs of internal storage, expandable storage, as well as a removable battery, which is really nice. Between the three of them, I expected the top end to have the removable battery, but the G4 Play one was the one with the removable battery. So you can swap the battery, carry an extra 2800 milliamp battery, and you should be fine. I'll check out to see how long the battery life is on this in the full review. When it comes down to the two big guys, the G4 and the G4 Plus, they're about the same in the sense of spec, almost a little, very minor difference between the two. We're looking at a bigger storage. We're looking at, again, the ability to be able to add, the LTE obviously support on both of these guys are very, very nice. We have the fingerprint sensor. We also have the ability of customizing both of these on Moto Maker. So if you've ever used Moto Maker with Motorola, which is definitely very nice, you can customize these guys down to the last second. You can get them even engraved. Customized is a great gift. The G4 is 180 bucks now. The price dropped down to 180 from $200. The G4 Plus is still running about $250, which is still a really good deal for the fact that you get a fingerprint sensor, a much better camera. The base model starts with 64. You have the 32 and the 64 gig model of it, as opposed to where here you have the 16 and the 32, and you can still expand them. But I think I like the fact that there is an option for 64 gigs out of the box. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I want to say thank you for Motorola for allowing me to check out these devices, and I'll give you guys a review very soon of my entire experience, as I'm going to try to test out all 3 different devices on and off to see which ones kind of fit that niche, and I'm also going to see how my son feels about having a 5.5-inch display in his hand. Again, as usual, like and subscribe. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Thank you very much for the support. I'll see you guys in the next one.